The key turned in the lock at exactly 11:06 p.m. I know because I was watching the clock from the parking lot across the street, one hand gripping the steering wheel, the other holding a cheap gas station coffee I didn't even want. I had parked my life for the last 10 years in that apartment, and now I was parked in front of it, watching her walk into a home that no longer held a trace of me. She didn't notice anything at first. Of course she didn't. Laurel was busy giggling about something her boss said, probably the same joke he tells every woman who works late with him. I watched her silhouette in the window, phone still in hand, heels still on. She didn't even take off her coat. Then the silence hit her. No shoes by the door. No jacket on the hook. No faint smell of my cheap sandalwood cologne lingering in the hallway like it always did. She called out my name once. I didn't answer. She turned the corner into the living room and stopped. I knew exactly where she would freeze, where my record shelf used to be, where my framed maps of places we never one had hung. The whole wall was blank, like someone hit backspace on a decade of my life. She dropped her keys. I smiled. She opened the bedroom door, and I could see her shadow from the street as she turned in a slow circle. Dresser, empty. Closet, half full. The half that mattered, gone. She must have checked the bathroom next. The stupid little notes I used to leave her on the mirror, wiped clean. The worn toothbrush she always complained I never replaced, vanished. Even the backup razor under the sink, gone. She called again. My name, twice, this time louder. Then the text started. Where are you? Why does it look like you moved out? What is going on? The messages kept coming. I didn't read them. I just watched her slowly realize the truth. This wasn't a tantrum. This wasn't a scare tactic. This was the end. And it was cleaner than she ever expected me to be. But what she didn't know, what she still doesn't know, is what I found in the trash before I left. She threw it out in a rush. Sloppy. Lazy. Like I wouldn't notice the receipt buried under the pizza flyer. But I did. That's why I packed so fast. And why I left something behind that'll haunt her long after she realizes I'm never coming back. The worst part? It wasn't even hidden. That receipt, the one she probably thought was buried beneath takeout menus and grocery lists, was folded once and tossed into the trash like it meant nothing. Like I meant nothing. But I saw it. At 7:43 p.m., while Laurel was still out with Calvin from work, I took out the kitchen trash to avoid another passive-aggressive note about smells. And there it was. Crisp. Fresh. Ink barely smudged. One appetizer. 2 entrees. 1 bottle of red wine. 2 glasses. At a steakhouse she told me was out of our budget. Signed with a tip too generous for someone claiming she was struggling to make rent. But what punched me in the gut wasn't the price tag. It was the note scribbled next to the signature. Next time it's your turn to pick the wine. Smiling face with smiling eyes. Not a scribble to herself. A message. Intended to be seen. Intended to be kept. I stood there, holding that receipt like it was a crime scene photo, the trash bag still half open in my other hand. And for the first time in months, my mind wasn't racing. It was quiet. Crystal clear. Everything she had been denying, gaslighting me over, brushing off with a laugh and a kiss on the forehead, it all collapsed in that one casual, flirty sentence. I didn't confront her. I didn't scream or call or even cry. Instead, I moved. Like clockwork. I grabbed the suitcase from under the bed, the one we never used because vacations were too stressful. I filled it with only what was mine. Nothing she bought. Nothing she ever touched. I left the hoodie she used to steal. I left the mug she gave me for Valentine's Day that said, "Still falling for you." I left the photo strip from the boardwalk that I kept tucked in my wallet for 9 years. I left it all. Not out of pain. Out of calculation. Because I wanted her to walk into that apartment and feel the silence like a slap. And I wasn't done yet. Before I zipped up the suitcase, I reached into the junk drawer where we kept batteries, coupons, and expired gum. Beneath it all was a small flash drive. One she didn't know I had. One that used to sit plugged into her old work laptop before she upgraded and tossed it in the donation bin without wiping the drive. She forgot I fixed that laptop. She forgot I copied that drive before wiping it clean. I didn't plan on using it. At first. But after seeing that receipt, I didn't just pack my things. I uploaded the contents of that drive to a cloud folder titled Laurel's Secrets. Nothing public. Nothing cruel. Just a quiet link. A backup. Because what she did wasn't just betrayal. It was documented. And if she ever tried to twist the story, if she ever made me look like the crazy one, all I had to do was hit send. At 9:12 p.m., I locked the door behind me for the last time. At 9:13, I slid the receipt back into the trash exactly where I found it. By the time she walked in at 11:06, I was already across the street, sipping bad coffee, watching her world unravel in silence. She still doesn't know about the backup. She still doesn't know what else I saw. But she will, because I left one last thing behind. Something she'll find tomorrow. And when she does, she'll realize this isn't just a breakup. It's a reckoning. The morning after I left, I didn't check my phone. Not right away. I figured there'd be calls, voicemails, maybe a few dramatic texts ranging from panicked to manipulative. I knew Laurel's cycle by heart. Deny, deflect, destroy. But I didn't care about any of that. I cared about only one thing. Whether or not she had found the envelope. Because I didn't leave a note. I left a choice. It was sitting on the kitchen counter, under her favorite mug. The one with the cracked handle she refused to throw away. Inside the envelope was a printed screenshot. Just one. Black and white. Grainy. Not dramatic. But very, very clear. It showed Laurel and Calvin in his car. Parked. His hand on her cheek. Her hand on his neck. Their mouths close. Not kissing, but not talking either. Caught in that frozen moment where two people forget anyone else exists. The image wasn't from a private investigator. It wasn't even recent. It was from 3 months ago. From my old phone. The one I used to leave on silent, face down, because she said I was addicted to checking it. I'd left it propped in the kitchen window one night when she came home late. I had started recording days earlier. I didn't know what I was looking for, but the footage found me before I could stop it. And I sat on it for weeks. Because I wanted to believe she was better than that. That I was paranoid. That maybe I really was insecure like she always claimed. But then came the steakhouse. Then came the receipt. And that's when the version of myself who kept making excuses finally gave up. I left the screenshot without a note, without a headline, without a caption. No threats. No questions. Just the truth. Cold. Silent. Undeniable. When I finally turned on my phone at noon, it lit up like a fire alarm. 12 missed calls. 5 voicemails. 9 texts. Each more desperate than the last. Why would you do this? Can we please talk? It's not what you think. I swear I was going to tell you. That last one. That one made me laugh. Like honesty was something she kept in her pocket, but just forgot to pull out. By 2 p.m., my sister called me. Apparently, Laurel had shown up to her bookstore, red-eyed and unhinged, asking if I was hiding there. My sister told her she hadn't heard from me. That was true. I hadn't told anyone where I was going, because I wanted to see how fast she'd spin the story. Sure enough, by 5 p.m., she was texting my coworkers, claiming she was worried about my mental health, that I had been under stress and might be in a dark place. A dark place? No. I was in a motel in Vermont, eating vending machine pretzels and watching reruns of Columbo. And for the first time in years, I felt nothing. Not even sadness. Just quiet. She was trying to flip the script, paint me as unstable, as the fragile one. But she didn't know I had already moved a step ahead. I had emailed myself a backup of every voicemail, every text, every petty little manipulation from the past 2 years. A full archive, neatly organized by date, labeled like evidence in a courtroom. Because if she wanted to play the victim, I was ready to put her entire act on trial. And the best part? She didn't even know who had taken the photo, or that there were more. Because Laurel forgot one very important thing. When you treat someone like they're invisible for long enough, they learn how to watch you without being seen. By the 3rd day of my disappearance, Laurel had graduated from panicked texts to full-on damage control. I watched it happen from a borrowed laptop in a roadside diner that smelled like burnt syrup and desperation. She had started posting vague things on social media, cryptic song lyrics, black and white selfies with captions like, "Healing isn't linear," and "Sometimes people break before they bloom." She even changed her profile picture to an old photo of us at a Halloween party, where she was dressed as Cleopatra and I was some forgettable Roman with plastic armor and a stupid grin. Suddenly, I was back in her narrative. But not as the man who quietly vanished after discovering betrayal. I was the emotionally distant husband who left without explanation. Her friends started messaging me. People I hadn't heard from in months suddenly cared. One even asked if I was okay, and said Laurel had been worried sick. She wasn't sick. She was cornered, and she was laying the groundwork for her version of the story. But here's the thing. Laurel was always good at optics. She knew how to cry without smudging her mascara. She knew how to talk about personal growth in a way that sounded like therapy when it was really just practice deflection. What she didn't know was that while she was crafting her image, I was quietly dismantling the foundation underneath her. I had already removed my name from the lease. I had already forwarded my mail. I had already contacted the bank and frozen the joint account that she treated like her personal shopping fund. But what really made her spiral wasn't the money, or the silence, or even the fact that I disappeared. It was the email. I sent it at 9:01 a.m. on a Monday. Short, precise, no emotion. Subject, thought you should see this. Attachment, October_14th_dashcam. MOV. It was a 22-second clip, taken from the dash cam of a friend's car. Laurel didn't know I had asked him to follow her that night. She said she was volunteering at a networking event. She thought she was clever, parking 2 blocks away from the venue, switching into heels in the passenger seat of a familiar black Audi. The video showed her leaning in for a kiss before the car door even closed. The streetlight caught her face just enough to erase any doubt. She didn't reply to the email, but I know she saw it, because 2 hours later, she tried to log into my cloud drive. Then, she called my sister again, this time crying so hard she couldn't speak. Said she made a mistake, that things got complicated, that she never meant to hurt me. My sister said nothing, just listened, then hung up. That afternoon, I got a text. Please, can we meet? Just once. I don't want to explain over text. I stared at the message for a while, not because I was considering it, but because I realized something I hadn't admitted until that moment. She still thought this was about an apology. She still thought this was something she could undo. But this wasn't a breakup. This wasn't a phase. This was a demolition. And when she finally understood that, she'd stop trying to reach me and start trying to run, because there were still things she didn't know I knew, still lies she thought were buried, and I was just getting started unearthing them. I wasn't planning to dig deeper. Honestly, I thought I had enough. The texts, the photo, the dashcam clip, it was more than enough to walk away clean and never look back. But when someone spends years convincing you that your instincts are wrong, that your gut is overreacting, you start to crave truth like oxygen. And once you find one lie, you start pulling at every thread just to see how far the fabric unravels. That's how I found the second phone. Technically, it was my phone. A backup I had kept in the kitchen drawer for emergencies, barely used. One of those prepaid burner phones you buy at a gas station and forget about. I hadn't touched it in over a year. But Laurel had. She must have assumed I'd never notice, because the phone was still exactly where I left it, plugged in and tucked beneath a pile of receipts and dead batteries. I found it while grabbing my passport the day I left. Just out of habit, I turned it on. What I saw made my stomach drop. She had used it. Often. The messages weren't under her name, but it wasn't hard to figure out. The contact was saved as R. Romantic? Maybe. Reckless? Definitely. And when I opened the conversation thread, I stopped breathing. Can't wait for this weekend. I miss your laugh. He still has no clue. I feel bad sometimes, but not enough to stop. What we have is real. He just exists. I scrolled through months of messages, plans, hotel bookings, a whole other life she had built in parallel to mine. There was even a picture, her, standing on a hotel balcony in a silk robe I'd never seen, holding a mimosa, looking happier than she'd looked with me in years. The timestamp? 2 months before our anniversary. She hadn't forgotten to delete the messages. She hadn't even tried, because she never thought I'd look. That night, I checked our bank history again. I knew she had a separate credit card. She called it her business expenses, said it helped her earn miles. But I'd never really paid attention to it. We kept our finances mostly separate near the end. This time, I paid attention. And right there, buried in plain sight, were 2 charges that didn't make sense. A resort in Cape Cod. A plane ticket to Denver. Both weekends I remembered her being at a leadership summit. Both weekends I had cooked dinner for one and gone to bed early so she could rest when she got back. I felt something in me start to splinter. Not break. Not explode. Just fracture. Like a slow leak from a pipe that had been under pressure too long. It wasn't just betrayal, it was repetition. Routine. A second life constructed with careful planning and casual cruelty. But here's the thing that haunts me more than all of that. She never planned to leave me. She planned to keep me. I was her safe zone. Her fallback. The person who made sure the light stayed on, and the rent got paid while she played house with someone else in weekend getaways and private DMs. She didn't want to destroy me. She wanted to pause me. And that's when something in me hardened. I had left behind the screenshot. I had sent the dashcam video. But now I had something else. Proof of sustained deception. Digital, financial, visual. A trail so wide, even she couldn't wriggle through it. And I wasn't going to post it. I wasn't going to destroy her reputation or her job or her precious online image. I was going to keep it. Like she kept me. A quiet warning. A loaded gun on the table no one dares to touch. Because this time, she didn't get to decide the ending. I did. And I wasn't done yet. The thing about secrets is they don't stay buried. They wait. They sit in quiet corners, tucked behind passwords, hidden in cloud storage folders with names like work_stuff or project_budget. And if you know where to look, or more importantly, if you finally decide to look, they come crawling out. I wasn't looking for more. I really wasn't. But after finding the burner phone and the hotel receipts, I started combing through everything. Old emails, photo backups, browser histories. I wasn't hunting for revenge. I was looking for closure. A reason. Some thread of logic that made all of this make sense. What I found instead was an email Laurel forgot to delete. Or maybe she thought she had. It was from a name I didn't recognize at first. Avery Langston. Sent 6 months ago. The subject line was simple. You said he wouldn't find out. My heart started pounding. It wasn't just paranoia anymore. I opened the email and read through it twice before I understood what I was seeing. Avery wasn't a stranger. She was Calvin's wife. Turns out Laurel hadn't just been playing me. She was the other woman in someone else's marriage. Avery's message wasn't angry. It wasn't some wild accusation. It was calm. Chilling, even. You told me it was over. You said he'd left. I believed you. I confronted him, and he denied everything. Then I saw the texts, the photos, the hotel reservations under both your names. I don't care what you do anymore, but I'm done covering for you. I'm done being quiet. If he finds out, that's on you. I froze. I read it again. So many things clicked at once. The sudden silence between Laurel and Calvin for a few weeks back in March. The weird tension in her voice when she said her company retreat was canceled. The random fight we had over nothing. How she picked a fight just so she could storm out and sleep at a friend's. Avery had confronted her. And Laurel had lied to her, too. She wasn't just playing me. She was playing everyone. A tangled web of affairs, lies, and backstabs, dressed up as working late and building her brand. And the worst part? I think she genuinely believed she could juggle it all. That she was clever enough to keep every plate spinning, every man fooled, every consequence at bay. But that email wasn't just a warning. It was a door. Because I responded. I didn't say much, just, hey, I think we should talk. Avery replied within the hour. And what she told me made everything worse. There were other men. Not just Calvin. 2 others. One from Laurel's grad program. Another from her old job. Avery had screenshots. Names. Dates. Even flight confirmations. I didn't want to believe it. My chest went cold. My mouth was dry. I stared at the screen like maybe it would apologize. But it didn't. And as Avery and I exchanged emails back and forth over the next few days, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't a one-time lapse. This wasn't even a pattern. This was a system. Laurel had built a lifestyle around lies. Carefully timed schedules. Excuses with receipts to match. Friends who unknowingly covered for her. She kept just enough distance between her worlds to make them all feel real. I wasn't her partner. I was her decoy. Her alibi. The man she showed off when she needed to look grounded. And I had loved her. Truly. Pathetically. Completely. Now I was just a file in her cabinet. The guy she could always run back to when the others got too complicated. But I had one thing she never expected. A witness. Avery. And she wasn't done talking. By the end of the week, I had enough information to rewrite the last 3 years of my life. And believe me, I did. I sat in a motel room with the curtains drawn and wrote it all out. A timeline. A digital map of her duplicity. It read like a screenplay. Like some tragic indie film where the husband's a background character in his own marriage. Avery was still emailing me every night. At first, it was just facts, dates, flight confirmations, overlapping weekends, side-by-side screenshots of texts Laurel had sent both me and Calvin within the same hour, each with different lies, different moods, like she was playing different roles in parallel universes. But soon, Avery's messages grew colder, more furious. She had spent years defending a man who cheated on her with a woman who was cheating on me. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. And then she sent me something I didn't expect. An audio recording from a call between her and Laurel. It was old, maybe 4-5 months before everything fell apart. Avery had recorded it because, as she explained later, it was the first time I didn't believe a word she said. I sat there in the dark motel room, heart thudding, as Laurel's voice filled the space. I'm not in love with him. I don't think I ever really was. He's safe, comfortable. He's the guy you marry because he won't hurt you, but also because he won't surprise you. There was a pause. Then she laughed. That sounds terrible, doesn't it? God, I sound awful. But yeah, Elwood doesn't know. He's too busy trying to be good. I think he just wants to be needed. It wasn't the words that broke me. It was the tone. Detached. Like she was reviewing a product that didn't live up to expectations. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even move. I just sat there, frozen in that small room that smelled like lemon-scented disinfectant, realizing that all the love I gave was filtered through a lens of utility. I wasn't a partner. I was a tool. A placeholder until someone better came along, or until her other lives got too chaotic and she needed a soft place to land. But the real fracture, the moment that shifted everything, came in Avery's next message. She told me she'd spoken to someone else. A name I didn't recognize at first, Chase. A guy Laurel had dated in college. She'd reached out to him out of pure curiosity, maybe a little spite, and what she learned sent us both spinning. Because Laurel had done this before. She'd done all of this before. Chase told Avery about the gaslighting, the secrecy, the study trips that turned out to be overnight stays with professors or classmates or clients. She kept men orbiting her like satellites, none of them aware they weren't the sun. And every time someone started asking questions, she flipped the narrative, became the victim, the misunderstood, the deeply wounded soul who just needed space, not judgment. And she got away with it. For years. Until now. Because this time, she picked the wrong man to manipulate and the wrong woman to lie to. Avery and I were no longer just the betrayed. We were the historians of her collapse. She didn't know we were talking. She didn't know we were compiling. She didn't know we were turning her mosaic of lies into a single, focused truth. And I knew exactly what to do with it. Not to destroy her, not to shame her, but to end her story where mine had already started over. With clarity and consequences. Because she may have fooled everyone else. But she would never fool us again. There's a strange kind of peace that comes when the truth finishes screaming. When all the puzzle pieces settle and you're left not with noise, but quiet understanding. I used to think closure had to come with confrontation. That one day we'd sit across from each other in a coffee shop, and she'd finally admit it all. Tearfully, maybe, while I held my trembling hands beneath the table. But closure didn't look like that. It looked like an email I never sent. It looked like evidence I chose not to release. It looked like leaving the final word unsaid. The truth is, I could have ruined her. The screenshots, the recordings, the testimonies. I had enough to make her professional life implode and her personal life disintegrate. I even drafted the email, to her job, to her parents, to her little circle of curated online admirers who reposted her selfies with captions like, "Queen Energy Sparkles." But then I stopped. Because winning doesn't always mean breaking someone. Sometimes it means refusing to be broken by them. And that's what I chose. I deleted the email drafts. I shut down the cloud folder. I messaged Avery one last time. Thanked her, told her I was done digging, and wished her peace too. She didn't reply for a few days. Then she sent back a single sentence. Maybe we both needed to meet her to find ourselves. She was right. Because the man I am now, the one writing this, not from a motel, but from a small apartment with light pouring through real windows, bookshelves I built myself, and music playing low in the background, is someone I almost forgot I could be. No longer tense. No longer waiting for the next lie. No longer mistaking crumbs for love. I still think about Laurel sometimes. Not with hatred. Just reflection. I wonder if she ever looks around and notices the absence of everything I carried. My effort, my presence, my belief in her. I wonder if her new lies fit as comfortably as the old ones. If she still wears that cracked smile in the mirror and calls it growth. But it doesn't matter. She's a story I closed. And the next chapter has nothing to do with her. A few weeks ago, I joined a local writers group. Just 5 people in a dusty community center with mismatched chairs and weak coffee. We share pages, workshop ideas, argue about Oxford commas. I told them I was working on a fictional memoir. Inspired by real events, I said. They don't know how real. One woman in the group, her name's Nora, short hair, fierce laugh, eyes that look like they've seen some stuff, said something after our last meeting that stayed with me. You write pain like someone who doesn't live in it anymore. And I smiled. Because she was right. I don't. Not anymore.